Hi there, my name is Danny Henderson. Welcome back to my beautiful channel. Now, we heard the horrors of the Maui fires, particularly in Lahaina, just over 6, 7 weeks ago now at this stage. I'm going to introduce Alfy Basurto to you in a moment, but first of all, I want to tell you something. I know that millions of you out there have been so concerned about Lahaina, about the people, how are they getting on, what's happening, what happened, what was it like, what was it really like, not from outside of Lahaina, not even from an island across, but from a resident in Lahaina. Now, I have been so insanely worried, as I know you guys have, that we've been told there are literally 2,000 children. We were told in the rest of the world that in Lahaina, all these terrible things happen, direct energy weapon, all of this horror. And the report was 2,000 children were missing. That's what we've been told. And then people are jumping on their channels saying, well, I heard from the military, from my sources, that they rescued the children, all 2,000 of them, and they took them somewhere to safety. And I'm thinking to myself, if I'm a mother and my children are missing, you are going to hear my voice rage across the oceans. My face is going to be everywhere. I'm going to post pictures of my kids, their names, their ages. I'm going to be screaming, even if I'm very religious and I'm very private and I'm Hawaiian and I don't need help from the rest of the world, like some people think, and that's their privilege. I have been so concerned about this lie that 2,000 literal children were taken on that day. Now we're going to hear from Alfy Basurto, who lives in Lahaina and was there in front of the wharf when the fire broke out. Alfy is the creator of rebuildmaui.com. He's a former deputy sheriff. He is a husband, a friend, and a father to 5 children. Welcome, Alfy. It's so good to meet you.
Thank you, Danny. Thanks for having me.
Now, Alfy, I'm going to hand the floor to you because may you please, and I know it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, may you please give us insight into what happened on the morning that the fire started.
So the morning of the fire, August 8th, of course, and for our family, it began at 4 a.m. because we were awakened by the wind. And, like what I was sharing with you earlier was, everyone experiences, PTSD in various ways. And for at least for me, after the fire, I was waking up for about 2 weeks or so at 4 a.m. every morning after that. And, my wife, actually, she had fire dreams every day after the fire. And I didn't. I've had some friends who dream of, being trapped out in the water and they see people they've lost, and fortunately, I didn't experience that. I did have the friend that I'm thinking of who was trapped in the water. He said the one thing that he is troubled with all the time that interrupts his sleep every night is he had to hand a lifeless child to a firefighter while he was in the water. So he said he was in the water for about 5 hours, and then after the fire was extinguished enough for him to get to land, he had to help lift the child and hand over his lifeless child to a firefighter. He said that he goes, Alfy, that to me is just the hardest thing I still see and deal with, which I just can't imagine what that's like. No. So I have 5 children, and we didn't lose any of our children, fortunately. But that morning we woke up at 4. The wind was just blowing. I felt, the winds were rated about 80 miles an hour, but I want to say it was at least 100. It just feels stronger, I think, when you're there.
Was it normal? And was the speed of the wind on that morning, was it not? Thank you. I love the look on your face. Tell us what was not normal about that morning, please, and the winds.
Well, so the wind, what's interesting is the wind is absolutely not normal for that area. However, if you talk to Hawaiians who lived there for generations, their ancestors will tell you those winds can happen. Not often, but they can. Now, what's really interesting is the reason that in the past the winds were dealt with more effectively is because they had vegetation in place, knowing that the wind could do that when it comes down those hills and into Lahaina. It was mitigated by really thoughtful agriculture. And if you look and if you're a student of agriculture, or if you're a farmer, you know that agriculture is set up in such a way to mitigate wind. And I think that with the development of the islands, of specifically Lahaina, we put ourselves in a position that we could not mitigate the wind in this case. I hear a lot of theories that, hey, this was an artificial wind. Perhaps. I can't say it wasn't. I do know when the wind was blowing that day, my wife loves theories. She just loves I will say that, everyone has like a spidey sense, a sixth sense. I will say something felt unnatural. And that's all I can say. Like, all I can say from something felt completely unnatural during when we were escaping from the fire, we evacuating. I just remember feeling at every moment, every time we evacuated a house, the thought would come to me, this does not feel natural, does not feel right. So that's what I have to say about the wind there. The wind began to destroy our fence. We lived in a piece of property. It was about a quarter of an acre, half an acre maybe. And it's enclosed by a big, large fence. The wind began to destroy the fence. The wind began to destroy rooftops, just ripping, pieces of roof off. And then, and this happened all throughout the morning until the afternoon. And keep in mind, we didn't have any power from 4 a.m. Beginning at 4 a.m., there was no power in all of Lahaina, because power lines started being destroyed by the wind. This was just wind, right? Then we see smoke start to billow up about 3 blocks away from our home. And then we see the smoke go from mild to kind of like, it looked like maybe one house fire. And then it became apparent that it started to grow, and it started to become really dark black smoke. So my friend and I decided to go down and just investigate. We're like, well, let's go see what this fire is about. So we ride our bikes out, again, about 3 blocks away, and we get there and we notice the fire is roaring. I mean, it is just gobbling up things. You can just see it. It's looked like an angry fire, man. So to get to the fire from my house, you have to travel 2 blocks and cross over a highway. And of course, our highway is not what you would see like in like the mainland, but it was still a 4-lane highway. It's still a good fire break. But so we get there, we cross over the highway, we start to see the fire, and as we're watching this fire, we notice that embers are beginning to just engulf us, right? We're like, what the heck? Like, this isn't right. Like, we shouldn't be this close to a fire. This doesn't seem correct. And we're getting blown over on our bicycles by the wind, just to give you a sense of how strong this wind is. And so we decide to get back to our house, and we start to turn on our garden hoses and start watering down our home. And what we're noticing is, because the wind is still blowing so hard, and it's really hot wind, really, really warm, hot wind, that as soon as we're putting water down on one area of the house, as I turn to water another area, the area I just watered is dry. I mean, it's just drying up as fast as I can put it down. And I realized that it's just the watering a house is just not gonna work. And so my wife asked me, like, should I pack a bag for us? I'm like, yeah, pack us a go bag, and grab anything in the safe, grab first aid kit, and and some medicine, and let's just grab a change of clothes and get it all ready. And by the time, I had asked her to go do that, it was time to go. The fire was about 3 properties away by the time we made the decision to leave. I mean, that's how fast it jumped. The fire from where my friend and I went to examine or witness the fire, but it was 2.5 blocks away. It had jumped the highway, it had traveled a block, and now it was 3 properties away, and it was still roaring. I mean, you could hear things blowing up. It was really intense, man. And so we load up our cars, and we all jump in our cars. You have to take as many cars as you can. We think that time we had 3 cars there, so we all jump in a car. We had to leave behind the boat. We had a jet ski. That was, I talk about those things because it was a way that we earned income. So leaving the boat behind, it really affects us a great deal. And so we evacuated our home, and we went to another home about 2.5 blocks away from the fire. So we thought, well, this will be good. We get there, and we quickly discover that the fire is moving so fast. It's there at this house now. It's starting to move, with us. And so as soon as we pull into the driveway, we make the decision, like, we can't stay here. We've got to go. And so we don't even get out of our cars. We say, hey, we're going to go to what we call the beach house. It was an old home we used to live in at the beach, about 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles away, because we figured, if it's by the water, it's safer, right? Water. So we go out there, and it looks like, okay, this might be okay. And in the meantime, we're seeing tons of cars evacuating to the south. Lots of people just getting out of town. They're loading up cars. You can just see everyone just moving. I mean, it is like a movie, man. It is insane as I begin to recollect everything that happened that day, and everyone, watching the fire. And so we get to that beach house, and because things have been moving so fast, we knew 2 of our kids had left before the fire to go pick up some friends 20 minutes away. And because of the wind or because of the fires, there was no cell phone communication between people on Maui. You couldn't call each other on Maui, but you could call the mainland, and the mainland could call you, which I don't know telecom. I do know that sounds really weird when I say it. Like, how is it that we're able to communicate, overseas, but we can't communicate with each other?
I just want to say, for point of reference to people that will see this that don't know what the mainland is, the Hawaiian Islands, which are the furthest landmass of islands away from anywhere else on our planet, they call America the mainland, just for those that don't know. But yeah,
thank you. Yeah, it's about 2,000 miles away. So I can make a phone call to about 2,000 miles away, but I can't make a phone call 5 miles away, it is what it is. I'm just telling you how it was. And it was so much so that way. So when I get to the beach house, people, everyone in times of disaster, a lot of people just step up, and they're and they're trying to help one another. So we get there, and people are already saying, hey, if you walk to the water, you can get a phone call out, but you can't call anyone in Lahaina. You have to call the mainland, only the mainland. Like, so it's very well known right now. And they say, walk to the water. And I knew that too, because when I lived there at the house, sometimes you'd only get reception when everything was down if you walk out to the water. So I do. And I decide to call California, because my kids' grandparents are there, and I just had the feeling to call them. And so I say, hey, Grandpa, trying to get a hold of the 2 kids, Jonah and Brooklyn. And we got separated, and we can't find them. As I'm calling and speaking with Grandpa, my 2 kids, Jonah and Brooklyn, call Grandpa as well, because they realize they can't call me either. So
Oh.
we're all on a conference call, right? And I can hear them because they're on speakerphone. I'm like, where are you? And they say, well, we're at the property. I'm like, what? You're at the property? We just left. Like, you can't be there. He's like, yeah, we're at the property, but we can't get out. I'm like, what? Like, you have to. And they had my truck. So I'm like, you have to. You've got to drive real aggressively and you've got to get out of there. They're like, but there's a telephone pole down. It's like, we can't get out. I'm like, okay, I'm coming. And so I grab a bike and I decided I'm going to bike in because I knew that all the poles would be down. I was like, there's no way I can get in with a car. And I I just the tire is flat. I'm like, this is not going to work. So I ditch the bike. I come back and I pick up my car, and it's a Tesla, and it's important. I mention that. You'll see why. And my dog was with me because we had it on dog mode because we didn't want her running away and going looking for my dog during a fire. So we left her in the car with AC on. So I jump in the Tesla. I start to drive towards the fire. And my first road, I was on Front Street. And I look down and I'm seeing just this raging fire on Front Street. And I'm like, well, that is not an option. Then I notice as I'm looking down Front Street, there's a car that is not being touched by fire. The nearest flame is about a couple 100 feet away. I mean, a couple 100 feet away, it's pretty significant. And I'm seeing a car spontaneously combust. It just catches on fire. No flames around it. And I saw two cars like this, but there's no flame around it, and it's just catching on fire. And I remember taking a second and just staring at it because my brain is trying to make sense. I'm like, how is this car catching on fire right now? Don't quite. It's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of how my brain works. I'm like, I want to figure this out. And I spent 2 seconds like examining how could this happen. I realized I'm not going to figure it out, so I just leave it. Excuse me. So I spend a couple of seconds there and I decide, okay, I got to check another street. I go up Shaw and I go up one block on Shaw, and then I look down. It's Wainee is the name of the street. And I look down Wainee and, excuse me. Sorry. But I look down Wainee and I noticed that fire is even more, it's like raging even harder on Wainee. And I actually see my ex-wife's house on fire. And for me, it was important to see it so I can tell him, hey, I saw your house. Like just being engulfed by the flames. I was like, there is nothing left of that house. And I knew I couldn't go down that street. It was too far gone. So I go down Shaw again, one more street, and I get to the center, to the intersection of Shaw and the highway. My friend sees me and he knows I'm about to go in. And he says, Alfy, you can't go back in the fire. He goes, I tried. I couldn't do it because you can't go in there. And he's like, it's too dangerous. And I said, listen, man, I got to go check on my kids. It's like, and then I see a big, and this sounds weird, but I saw it was a big military truck or big military water truck. It's huge. And as I'm talking to my friend, it passes me and goes straight into the direction of the fire. And it's a few 100 feet away. And then it's clear, no smoke. And then a couple 100 feet in, it's just a thick wall of smoke, just the darkest, thickest wall of smoke, because that's where the fire is traveling. So I see it and I'm like, shoot, I got to go in there. So I see the big truck pass me and starts to go in to the fire. And I tell my friend, I got to go. And so I pull in from behind. I pull in behind this big truck to follow it in. And I'm like, okay, cool. I can just follow him in. He'll clear the path. If there's any down power lines, if there's anything down on the road car, he'll clear the way for me. It starts to drive up. It's moving really quickly. As soon as it gets to the big wall of black smoke, it stops. And I'm like, what? what are you doing? And then he puts it in reverse. I'm like, no, 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 no. I gotta go in. I gotta go in. And then backs up. And then I have to back up because it's such a huge truck. And so I have to back all the way back out. And it's 4-lane highway, but there's a median in the middle. So, you know, there's 2 lanes here, 2 lanes here. So he backs all the way out. And then I was like, well, I gotta go, you know, I gotta go. So I go in real slow, right? And I'm in the Tesla. And the reason I think it's really important is because as soon as I get to the next intersection and it's clear of smoke and I can see now, I'm like, oh, thank goodness. And I can see flames shooting like underneath from like, there's a fence on this side of me and there's flames shooting from underneath the fence towards my vehicle. And then I get to the first intersection, which is prison, it's the highway and Prison Street. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness it's clear here. There's no cars in the way, no people. And then I'm like, just one more street, right? I have to go one more street down the highway. And I travel in that big, thick smoke again. And then, you know, I'm like just praying nothing's in the way. And I get to the next intersection, and that is the street I need to go down. So and that one is Dickinson. So I get to Dickinson. And I'm like, okay, I just got to go left on Dickinson 2 blocks and I'll get home. I look down, right away I see a telephone pole. I'm like, great. But what I notice is if I go to the right, I can sneak my car under the telephone pole, and just enough. But then I realized that there's a big power line hanging low, and I know I can see it's about to touch the top of my car. And so I look over at my dog and I'm like, hey, Nala, I mean, this, you know, I was like, this could be it for us. We got to go check on the kids. Okay. And I get closer, you know, I'm inching closer. I'm like, just got to go do it, Alfy. And as soon as I get closer, closer, closer. And then I see a touch and I'm like, we're still here. We're still here, Nala. I was like, okay, let's go. As soon as I get past that one, I go to the left because there's another down line. This one, the power line is right at my windshield now. And I'm like, okay, girl, we got another one. I was like, let's go. And I drive up nice and slow. And like this one was harder to do because this one is like I'm staring right at the power line as I'm driving up to it. And it gets closer, and I'm like, touch. I'm like, it's like, Nala, we're still here, girl. We're still here. And then we drive through that one, and I just, you know, it scrapes up along my car. Then there's one more power line on that tiny street. If anyone knows the street between the highway on Dickinson and Wainee, it's just a little tiny street. It's Dickinson. It's so tiny, and it just 3 down poles. We get to the next one. This one scraped the top. Now I'm feeling confident. I'm like, okay, if those 2 are down, this one's probably down too. And then this one just scrapes the top of my car. I'm like, thank goodness. I get to the intersection there of Wainee and Dickinson. I look down, and the big complex, it's called Ainanalu. It is engulfed in flames. It is just consumed. It's pumping out this super dark black smoke. It is just raging fire. And you know, and I just remember seeing how all the flames and smoke are coming off that building. And I continue to drive towards my house. And there's another down pole, right? So I'm able to sneak my car under there. Now, my car is so low, it's so tiny that I'm able to sneak. That's why I'm saying it was really important that I had that Tesla. And I found out later that we had a friend of ours who had a dog just like mine who died in their car because they couldn't start it because of the fuel air mixture did not allow for his car to start. So he died in his car trying to escape, but he had a naturally aspirated vehicle. And so I don't know if I was driving a regular car, if I would have made it in and out. I don't know. We don't, but I have a feeling maybe not. Well, so I get past the very last, down line, and I can see my house, and I notice every building around my house is on fire. And as I get closer to my house, I look over and I see my boat is just raging on fire. I see my fence, lot, and just a bunch of different places on my fence are on fire. I see like the bushes on fire. I see like parts of my house on fire, but I noticed that my kids aren't there. I'm like, the truck is not here. So I was like, so they're not here. They're okay. I was like, that's all I need to know. I'm like, oh. And for 1 second, I think I can just stay and fight the fire. I can just stay here real quick. And I'm like, and I get out of the car. I start like stomping out some of the flames that are on my fence. And I'm like, maybe if I just put out some of these, I'll be okay. But the wind was blowing so hard, and it was just, and I can see the wharf, this huge shopping complex next to our house was completely in flames. And so that's when I decided, I was like, you know what, Alfy, just go out the way you came. You made it in safe. The kids aren't here. Just get out of here. And so I just jumped back in the car. We go back up the way I came in, and I got back to my wife, and my wife's like, oh my gosh, I thought you were gone. She's like, our friend kept saying like, he saw you go into the fire and didn't, he's like, he said you were crazy. He's like, you just can't go back in there. And so she was happy. I was happy, but we realized then the fire had now gotten to that house now, the beach house. So we had to evacuate that house now. So everyone gets in their cars, we evacuate. We go about another 2 miles away up the hill, way up the hill. We're like, okay, we're going to be safe here. We can wait it out. We're there about 5-10 minutes, and the fire is there too. It is just crazy. So everyone in that area decides to, evacuate, and we all go to Kihei, which is about 45 minutes from where we are. It's on the complete other side of the island. We get to Kihei, and we notice that there's lots of other cars there too, families, kind of like reuniting with each other. And we're getting something to eat, we're getting things to drink. We're just like, we made it. We're there for about an hour, maybe. We're all talking about how we escaped, and we're just like recapping each other. Well, as we're there for about an hour, and then we get an emergency alert that Kihei has to evacuate. The fire is now there. So we were like, this is absolutely crazy. I just can't believe we're evacuating again. We're on the other side of the island. So we get on our cars and we go to Target, which is about 20 minutes away. And we go to the Target parking lot, and there's hundreds of cars there, and you can tell they're all people who are just, escaped from Lahaina. Everyone's sleeping in the cars. They got their dogs in their cars. People are buying like things like underwear and toothbrushes and pillows. And everyone's trying to figure out where to go, it was just crazy. So then we went to go sleep at a friend's house, and that just started, a life of just kind of like little bouncing around. And then we found a place to stay, and yeah, that's our experience with the fire.
Wow. Gosh, I mean, there's so many things I could have asked you there, but I just wanted to honor your story. It is so harrowing. And again, the love of a parent, that's what you showed there. The love of a parent. You will do anything to get to your children, to save your children, to be with your children. Which is why when the report came out about 2,000 children, that's the official number, then all conspiracy theories start and people are talking rubbish. And it's just so wrong for that lie to be out, because what it does, it takes our eye off the fact that there are still children missing, but it's not 2,000. The military did not rescue them in the way that we've been lied to or people have made up out there in the field. So you told me that a lot of parents still are so traumatized. They're staying in hotels over the other side of the island. They're still homeless, of course, at this moment, and they are too scared and traumatized to be separated from their children. They're not going to send their kids to school on the other side of the island. They're not ready for that. That could account for some of the children not showing up for registration for school. What else can you tell us about other reasons why children may not be turning up for school, please?
Yeah. So, well, I will say this about I've never heard of. Okay, so word travels very quickly here and on an island, very quickly. Like if you tell someone, hey, I broke up with Susie yesterday, well, that is going to get around very, very quickly, you know. And so if there were truly, I've never heard that before, and it would be really difficult to hide 2,000 kids from anyone because, as I said, word travels so quickly here. It's just crazy because everybody knows each other to a degree. Okay, so there are a number of kids who are unaccounted for at the DOE level, Department of Education, because yeah, there's a lot of parents who just aren't ready to send their kids to school. You know, they're just, you know, one you know, one of the things that people struggle with right now, you know, let's just talk about our high school, Lahaina Luna High School. So they've been criticized because they don't have an evacuation plan. Well, if I was a parent who just lost their home, which I am, right, I would not feel comfortable sending my kid, and I don't feel comfortable sending my kid to a school that doesn't have an evacuation plan in place. Because what if another fire happens? Well, so there's a lot of parents in that category. There's parents who because the nature of things here is your life now is consumed by speaking with organizations like FEMA, Red Cross, and a number of different charitable organizations to help you with your housing and your living expenses because the work that you used to have no longer exists. And so what you're finding yourself having to do is you're just going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, trying to get whatever financial assistance, housing assistance that you can get. What that means is you are not focused on sending your kids to school right now. There's a lot of parents who are like, no, I'm not even there yet. You know, they're just staying at a hotel, you know, one of these shelters. And they're just like, you know, we haven't sent our kids. And no one, you know, no one bats an eye at it. They're like, yeah, we get it. You know, no one questions it at all.
Can I ask you a question that's not easy to ask? It seems clear that many people did die in that fire. We got reports that there were families desperately trying to drive out that were blocked by a police car that were backed up all the way down Front Street for whatever reason. That police car was instructed to be there and block, and many people have come out, eyewitness accounts of that. And then other people saying that whole families were incinerated. You know, parents, family members, children were incinerated in their cars. Not just that, but we were also told that there were many wooden structures, old, beautiful Hawaiian, many people living in one home, grandparents, parents, aunties, uncles, and children. And we were told that the children were home that day because it was a school holiday. The teachers were in session at the schools, but the children were at home. They weren't at school. Different reports on that. Could it be that some entire families also burned to death in that fire too? Can you validate?
Yeah, so we have a friend who, you know, they were attempting to evacuate, and he has 5 kids of his own, and he lives in a home, kind of like just like we were describing, right? You know, like is it multi-generational? You know, where they have grandma, grandpa, they have, you know, their auntie, uncle living there too. So that was their situation. His wife, his 5 kids, and grandma, grandpa, sister, and the sister's child. Okay, So they get in their cars and they begin to evacuate. My friend and his 5 kids start to drive away, and they look into their rearview mirror and they notice that a pole comes down, traps grandma, grandpa, sister, and child behind them, and they burn, and they're gone. And it's that. So that's a whole family there. And this is someone we know, which is just incredibly unfortunate. And then so yes, to your question, do we know of entire families getting incinerated? Absolutely. Absolutely. And now you're talking about the roadblocks and the police. That was really unfortunate. Being a former law enforcement, you're expected to make on the fly decisions when circumstances change. We're all blessed with a brain and a conscience, and we're expected to make a lot of people call them, like, they're also called, like, game day decisions, like, hey, it's game time, like, you need to make a decision, and sometimes it's contrary to what your supervisor has given you, but that's you're a big boy or a big girl, it's your responsibility to make that decision. So we have my son has a good friend, his best friend, who is driving into Lahaina during the fire. And I spoke to him, and I heard the accounts of the roadblocks, but I didn't experience it. But so my son's best friend was driving in, and he's an adult, right? So he's driving in, and he says, yeah, Alfy, I saw the road. I was at the roadblock. He goes, and they wouldn't let me in. He goes, but then I look over the roadblock and I see they're not letting people out. He goes, so they're just turning us around, and I see people U-turning and U-turning out and going back up north. He's like, but then I see everyone being blocked in, stuck in Lahaina. And I'm like, well, was there a downline or anything there that would prevent them from continuing out past the roadblock? He goes, no, it was just the police cars. I'm like, are you freaking serious? It's like, yeah, that's what happened. And I want to say too that he also saw people jumping out of their cars and into the water. That's where that roadblock was. So, that is just not, that is poor policing. I think that's really poor policing, unfortunately. And I think it's important for us to talk about it, because we can't ever have this happen again. And I don't want to make this a thing about, hate the cops. I think they were trained poorly. I think they were untrained. I think that responsibility falls on the command staff, and I think they failed miserably. I think they truly did here.
Well, I mean, quite frankly, because of an instruction given to a police person who did block the road, people died. They died in complete and utter agony. I mean, there's no pretty talking around that, So thank you for facing that on, being a former deputy yourself. I'm so grateful to you, Alfy. I know it's not easy to talk about. How could it be? I'm so happy that you are a success story, that you and your wife and your 5 children did get out. I can't imagine the horror of worrying for Jordan and Brooklyn when you couldn't reach them. And I know other families haven't been quite so fortunate as you. Can you give us a little update on what is happening in Lahaina, but particularly what you are doing, Alfy, what you as an individual person have created to support your brothers and your sisters in Lahaina?
Thank you. I just, right now the problem is, so it's important first is you identify the problem, right? The problem is we've got about 2,000 homes or more have been destroyed. What that means is it's displaced even more families. Probably if there was 2,000 homes, and a lot of families were doubling up, tripling up in a home. I mean, that's just the reality of it here. So there's several thousand families that are without homes, and they want to stay on Maui because this is their home.
Good.
And that that but there creates a problem because it was before the fire, it was already very difficult to find a home here. And especially anything affordable, that was just, out of the question. So now the problem has even become worse. So what we decided to do is we own some land on Lahaina that was not affected by the fire. And we decided to create a nonprofit, and it's rebuildmaui.org. And what we've done is we've donated the land to the nonprofit, and we're going to allow people who've been displaced by the fires to live there with a tiny home. That we've got some people that want to donate tiny homes and to place them there and to live there free for the next 2-3. I think it's going to take about 5 years. 5 years for everything to get back to a good place, and just live and get their feet on the ground. Because what I found, we recently found a house to live in, and what I found is there's no way I could deal with the daily rigors of sending your kid to school out of a hotel. That's just not the question. It sounds really, it's the fact that they're expecting families to do that right now is beyond me. Because think about it. You drive into a hotel, you park far away, you walk in, you do the hotel elevator thing. It's not real life. It's great for vacations. It's not for real life stuff. So now that we're here in a home, man, we can tackle all kinds of things. Like we're like, school's great. Let's go, let's find work now, let's do whatever we can, because we do have the nonprofit. But, I'm telling everyone is like, man, you have to do everything in your power to create income now, so I'm detailing cars, I'm cleaning carpets, cleaning furniture, building things. Like whatever you can do to create income right now is what you got to do, because our entire economy just got destroyed. We lost 3 businesses in the fire. And, what are you going to do? I mean, I can sit around and cry about it, or I think the worst thing you can do is think that the government's going to come help you and give you a bunch of money and wait in your hotel. And I'm giving this advice to people who are doing that, because that's just not going to happen. You're going to be really unhappy if you think the government's going to come around, just hand you a paycheck and be like, okay, your problems are gone. No, man. I think we got to help each other. We got to help ourselves. That's why I think that the way to solve this is, everyone contribute in the way that they can. I think that's like, for us, we have land. We're teaming up with people who have tiny homes, and we're going to come together and provide homes. And that is going to be part of the solution. That's just what it takes. Everyone has to contribute to this. So it's going to require lots of solutions. In fact, not just one. Because tiny home living, like we're a family of 7, 5 kids, my wife and I, we can't fit in a tiny home. No tiny home out there can fit us. But doesn't mean we can't help other families, other small families who could live there, and it's just to require all of us contributing in the way that we can.
Amazing. And you're putting up geodesic domes. Do you want to share screen and show us what you're up to?
Sure can. Let's see if I do this right. Okay, so here's our website, rebuildmaui.org.
It's not coming up.
And
it's not showing up.
Oh, let me see if I can figure this out. Screen share. I'm screen sharing. Aha, there we are. Oh, here we go.
I'm going to pause my end.
Yeah, pause it, please. Okay, so here's our website, rebuildmaui.org. And in a nutshell, what we're focused on is providing long-term housing for families who were displaced by the fire. And, we have access to, we have 2.5 acres, and we have access to another 3.5 acres in Lahaina. And obviously it's not going to provide homes for, I think there's over 6,000 people in the hotels. It's not going to provide housing for 6,000 people. But our hope is that this will encourage people, motivate people who are able to provide housing in the way that they can. Some people have, you know, Airbnbs that they can want to convert to long-term housing, or sometimes people, you know, they whatever, they want to put a tiny home on their land, whatever they can, whatever capacity that they can contribute. We hope that this project will do that. You know, our vision for this project was to use geodesic domes, and why we chose these geodesic domes is because they are incredibly stout and resilient against you know, winds and really tough weather. And so you'll see structures like these in really tough areas, like, you know, up Mount Everest and the North Pole. You know, you'll see these geodesic, you know, structures there because they just withstand. They're really easy to construct. They can go up in less than a day, and in fact, in 3 to 6 hours with the right people, you can get one of these up. And they're relatively inexpensive, and they're kind of cool, actually. So we wanted to make it attractive for families, because I think when you live in some place that's not attractive or you just don't like, all you think about is what you've lost, you know. And what I've told people is, like, you know, when you're dating someone and you break up, and then if you don't date someone, you know, just as cute or cuter, all you think about is what you lost. You know, we don't want to put people in that situation. We want people to be like, I love my home, you know, and it's beautiful. And the land that we have, it overlooks the ocean just like this. It's gorgeous. Wonderful. And we want people.
Will there be an ability for bathrooms to go into these domes, or will there be like outside public toilets for people?
So to get this project moving moving quickly, the fastest solution would be to have a community bathroom, you know, and have several community bathrooms. That would make, what that does is, you know, this is going to have to be pumped, meaning you're going to have a service come out, and, you know, just like if you can think of like at a concert or like a big public event, they have a bunch of, you know, porta potties set up, and they have the pump service come out and extract all the black water, as they call it.
Yeah.
Well, that would make this project move along much faster and not require additional permitting when you have, you know, these temporary services, temporary sanitation services.
Okay. Well, wonderful. I mean, for people to be donating tiny homes, for you to be putting up your domes, to help people get out of hotels and try and get back to some normal life. And then the gift, which obviously doesn't put back what everyone has lost, but the gift of not having to worry about rent because of the insanity that was building up before the fire, the cruelty, the forcing people out back to America, or the mainland as people call it, all of those things. This is arresting all of that. And we were told that there were so many people that lost their homes that were being forced off the island. Maybe some had to go to the big island. And we were getting information outside here, you know, in the States and England, etc., that people were having to sell their land for pennies on the dollar, that the real estate agents, the vultures, other people with big wallets were coming in and buying up the burnt area. To your knowledge and experience and firsthand information, is that true?
Well, I will tell you firsthand what is happening. So someone I know lost their home. They got a call from their insurance company, and they offered them 250,000 American dollars for their home. Their home is, you on the west side, for a home, you cannot touch even a burnt piece of property for 200,000, more like $1 million. And that is just for a piece of land out here, $1 million US. And, you know, he he thinks to himself, what am I going to do with $250,000? Like and they asked him, hey, we'll give you 250,000 cash, but just don't file a claim. And he's like, absolutely not. That just doesn't help me at all. So that's one example of what's happening. There are a ton of people who are leaving the island, who've already left, I should say, because they need to make money, and their their livelihood has been taken from them. So they left the island immediately, and they had in search of work. Some people left because they didn't want to be reminded of the destruction of the loss they experienced. So those people had to leave. I mean, there was a huge exodus of people. Some people left the day after the fire. They just got on a plane and they're like, hey, we're dealing with our insurance from here, from the mainland, because we just don't want to deal with it there.
Do you want to put us back on main screen so people can see?
Sure can. So
anything else you want to show us?
No, I think that's it. Let me just get us back here on this. Sorry.
There you go.
There we are.
Amazing.
So, yeah, something that's happening that's really unfortunate is some people are hiring they're called the private adjusters, and they go out and they take a look at your destroyed home, and then they go and fight for you to get the most from your insurance company. What they're doing is they're having people sign paperwork that entitles the adjuster to 20% of whatever they get you. So if they're getting $1 million for their property, they just signed over $250,000 to this adjuster. It's just criminal, because they're not entitled to $250,000 for looking at something, and they don't realize what they're doing.
Right, but they're so desperate to get their money. I spoke to a lady yesterday who stuffed up my hair, and she told me that she lost her house in the Fort Myers, which was a hurricane that happened in Florida last October. Lost windows, floor, ceiling, blew off, etc. And same thing. And she filed right before you could get some kind of an adjuster that would fight for you, even though she had to give over so much of the money that she got. And now the American government have just banned that. You can no longer have an adjuster. They're going to step in and tell you what it's worth. So it's kind of the adjusters are fighting for the maximum, taking a chunk. But apparently a law just passed where people, when they lose their house now, hurricane, whatever, that they don't have the ability. The government are going to tell them what time it is, which is horrific and horrendous. But you're right.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, that a lot of people, they just don't know. They're really desperate for help, and they think they're doing the right thing, and they make bad decisions because they've never been in this situation before. So they're just making some really poor decisions, and it's no fault of their own, but it's really unfortunate to see that. And we are going to lose more families here, because there's a lot of families in the situation where they lost their home, but they still have to pay their mortgage. People don't realize this. People are still responsible for paying their mortgage on a house that's been destroyed, and now they need to go find a place to live and rent, and pay rent there and pay for a mortgage.
Right, and this, Alfy, is insanity. It is criminal that this could even be a thing. That it could even be a thing. They should put the mortgage on pause because there's no house, dum-dum. But yeah, and then make sure these people, these families have a chance to get back online. See, this is the psychological warfare inflicted on the beautiful people in Lahaina. And this is what the world must hear. How incompetent, how cruel, how evil this pathetic government is, the incompetence of it. Now, sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, well, it's really unfortunate. A lot of people don't realize that that's what's happening. And I shared that with someone, and they were shocked. They're like, what are you talking about? People are paying mortgage. And I'm like, yeah, the mortgage doesn't go away. And you're like, well, in the other disasters in the US, they they put a stay on all mortgages. Well, I'm like, well, it didn't, that's not happening here. There is no stay on mortgages. They are completely paying their mortgage. I haven't heard of one family not having to pay their mortgage right now. But what that does is the insurance company gives you a bunch of money, right? And most everyone is underinsured. Okay. So they give you money that would not cover the cost of replacing your house, but now they're eating away at that money to survive, to live, right? And so you extrapolate that over 2-3 years, 4 years, when you're able to build, that money's been dwindled down to nothing. So they won't be able to rebuild. And if you don't have an income, you can't apply for a construction loan to help rebuild your house. It's going to get real bad. It's about to get real bad for people.
Right. In terms of people that can't pay their mortgage, obviously whatever they have, even if it's burnt land, it's repossessed and then goes back into the banks of the muffers that own everything. What could we do to help? What message could we put out there? What can we do to help your friends and the families there in Lahaina?
Well, I think one thing is that we could call for the government to put a stay on mortgages here. That just, I don't know why that's not a thing. It most certainly has to be a thing for people to keep their homes. It's all got to be put on hold, on stop, and then in 3, 4, 5 years, those payments can start again. One mortgage company said, yeah, you can not pay for 90 days, but at 90 days, you must pay everything that you owe, or else your house will get foreclosed on. I'm like, that doesn't sound like you are doing anything for your customer. It just sounds like you're just the normal policy.
Yeah, they're applying the regular rules that everybody else has to suffer without taking into consideration the horror, the psychological damage, the trauma, and everything else. It's sick. It's an insanity and a sickness. So I'm going to just say, right, there are people that will see this. There are people who are in a position of power. There are people that, if you care, show you care, do something, step up, make a sound, make a noise, help these people, give them the money so they can pay off their mortgages, because your government is making them. They are causing and creating suffering. We've heard, Alfy, that they want the muffers that run everything. They want all that land. They want all the people of Lahaina out. Alfy, can you share with us, please, some of the beautiful, real Indigenous history of why Lahaina is such a precious area amongst all of the Hawaiian Islands?
What makes Lahaina very unique is historically it was the capital of Hawaii, and it was chosen as the capital for many significant reasons. Now, if you look back at history, our ancestors were actually much better at choosing strategically advantaged locales. For instance, from Lahaina, you could see your kingdom, meaning you could see almost all the islands standing on the water. You can actually see them, which makes it puts you at a really strong advantage, right? Because you can overlook your kingdom. They had access to fresh water. And I mean, that's another thing. I don't even think we will go down that whole road, but there's a lot of people who are talking about how the water's been diverted. Well, if you do a simple Google search, one of the wettest places in the world is the West Maui Mountains. It's the mountains that feed all the water to Maui and Lahaina. The West Maui Mountains, that water runs all the way down to Lahaina, which also makes one of the most important factors in settling in a land, in ancient times, was where's the water, right? You couldn't settle in an area until you knew you had access to fresh water, or else you couldn't settle there. Well, that made Lahaina even more attractive. So, and the weather here is just fantastic, and the land is ripe for agriculture. you put all those things together, and it just makes it just such a wonderful, it just makes sense. Like, well, of course this place is wonderful. It's beautiful. It's protected by all the other islands. So not only can you see the other islands, those islands actually serve as protection against weather fronts. That's what makes the weather here so beautiful year round. And it's unfortunate that, on, yeah, there's a lot of theories that, there are a lot of people who want to buy up Lahaina. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I know there's been a lot of, I've heard a lot of talk that a lot of the big, huge conglomerates want to buy, you know, um, single family homes. Perhaps this is part of the strategy. I don't know.
Yeah, horrific. When we know there's so many generations, and the beauty of the Hawaiian people and their history, in essence, in the Lahaina, it was somewhat been decimated, but it won't remain that way, because the Hawaiian people will rise up. They are rising up. They are digging in. They are staying. They are working together. They are a proud people. And it's just amazing. I told you I was living recently on Kauai. And the Hawaiian Islands are just beyond special, beyond, and Lahaina in particular as a singular, point. The history will not be, as much as it's trying to be covered up, and it won't turn into. I heard another rumor that I don't know, that bloody old chap who's running the States, the old doddery bloke who's clearly got dementia, or his brain is just. I mean, is it not elder abuse at this stage? They clearly don't care. Like, trot some old boy out that can't talk properly. But there's just so much to say here. There's just so much to say here. I'm just so proud.
Yeah, that's really yeah. I just don't understand that. I from a citizen of the United States, I just don't understand what our president is doing there. But I'm just one person.
Yeah. Well, he's one old duffer that obviously doesn't care. He's more interested in throwing money over to Ukraine, because that's becoming part of America, just in case anybody hadn't noticed. Not that we want to make this political, because I really don't care for the politics, and I'm embarrassed to even put these men's mouths in my names in, because they're so incompetent and embarrassing. But it's men like you. You should be president of that country, without question, that you're stepping up with others and you're giving homes to the homeless, and you're saying you can live here for 3 years, and you're not going to take their firstborn. You're not going to take their income. Alfy, you are showing what a man is. You are showing what a good citizen of planet Earth is. And I am so proud of you. And when Leah, who is your friend too, and Leah came on my channel in the beginning, I was screaming out there like, come on, who's out there? Come on my channel, please, let me help you. Let's get some funds into the hands of the people who lost their houses. That's what we did. Leah came on. She gave me a ton of family names with their Venmo, their PayPal. We pushed the charities out of the way. We ain't got time to wait for all the people that staff them to get paid. We need to get money to the children, to the adults. And we did that. We did that, Leah and I. And many people, and God bless you, God love you for helping when you saw my Rumble and my YouTube with Leah. And now I bring to you Alfy. And Alfy's showing you what it is to be a man in a place of crisis and trauma, and how he's stepping up to help. What can we do to help Lahaina, guys? What can you do? Can you be boots on the ground? Can you bring tools? Can you bring tiny homes? Can you bring domes? What do you need, Alfy? Well, how else can we help you?
We need all those things. We're also finding, people want to donate. Of course, we can donate in many ways. You can, the things that I think they're most useful is gift cards. Gift cards are a great way to help people. They truly are. Cash donations, of course, those help people. People right now are slowly starting to transition into homes. Slowly, not enough people. But what we're finding is that they've got to repurchase everything. Just think about that. A toaster, silverware, glasses, towels, everything, cleaning supplies. They need brooms, like they need all the housing stuff. So if if people want to help in that way, there's a ton of people who need help. A microwave. I mean, they just need all kinds of things. A lot of people are not rebuying wardrobes, not fancy wardrobes. We don't even dress fancy here in Maui, because we go to the beach all the time, right? The people are resistant to go out and repurchase a bunch of clothes because there's no room for it. It's like, oh, we'll wait until we find a place before we buy that. We'll wait until we get a place because you don't want to, what's the point? So helping people transition into homes is huge. We got a little grant from Walmart, which is really nice. We got to help some families. Gift cards from places like Walmart and Target. That's just a personal feeling, but Target is also great, and Home Depot and Lowe's. Those places really, and Costco. Those gift cards to those places would help families tremendously. You can get on our website. You can donate there. We can help people that way.
Right.
You can donate to a friend, who commits to helping families here. That's any way that you feel that you can get in touch with a family is how you should do it, and how you feel comfortable. So, but just helping in any way is going to really make life easier for some family out there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing, and definitely stepping up as brothers and sisters of this planet. This is our home. These lands are our lands. They don't get to be taken by people because they have more money and more power in their own one-celled amoeba brains. So again, we come together, we unite, we show each other how this world is going to be, and loving on each other and standing up and shoulder to shoulder, always moving forward in love. It's everything. Embracing all cultures, dovetailing everybody in together, not having a single side. There are no sides. We are one family, one family. But we've been so programmed to try and divide. And as we show them what time it is, the muffers that run my planet, your planet, our planet, they're waking up to nights of Earth like you, who are like, let me show you how it's done. Sunshine. Oh, Alfie, it's been so good. There's so many more things I could ask. I just want to ask one quick thing. We were shown on television, and by this man, this estate agent, Eric, you call them real estate agents, Eric, from, what was it called? Hawaii Homes or Maui Homes. You must have heard of him, an estate agent guy, filming everyone. I mean, and we got so much information from him. Hi, Eric. Hope you're good. And he was showing us that on Front Street and across the street and down the road, they had fenced off. They wouldn't even let people go back and go between the ashes and making up, oh, it's toxic or whatever. But they had Joe Biden standing there, on Ground Zero anyway. We're told that they can't get in. It's blocked off. There is aggressive military armed guards that was stopping people going in to see if their safes, their fireproof safes are still there or whatever little they had. Can you confirm that?
Absolutely, I can confirm that. So we went back to inspect our home 2 days after the fire, and at that time there was very little military presence, very little. It was primarily just law enforcement, right? And there was some blockades, but really it was really very easy to get to your property because no one really wanted to come back 2 days after. They were still trying to figure out life, I mean, but we went back with a truckload of supplies. We went to Costco and we bought tons of stuff: gas, water, feminine products, diapers, food, flashlights. And anytime we saw someone, we would just stop and ask them, hey, what do you need? And we weren't the only people doing that. In fact, there was other people doing the same thing, because you hear the accounts of people like, hey, the first ones who were helping Lahaina were from Lahaina, were people who lost their homes too. They were out there. People were handing out bags of ice because no one had electricity. So they were handing out bags of ice because they had to keep a way to keep their foods fresh, right? And so in the coming days, we saw the walls going up. We saw the military come in. And then I think it was about a week after the fire, it became impossible to come back in to Lahaina. And so my really good friend, he left his dirt bike at my house, and I said, hey, well, your dirt bike is still there. It didn't burn. And he goes, and he part of it burned, but it was next to a tree. I don't know how it didn't get burned. Everything else is burned to dust. Everything is just dust. But for some reason, that bike did not. So I said, I saw it, man. It's good. It's okay. And he goes, okay. I said, right now, you might still be able to get in. And the very next day, they placed police cars along the highway every several hundred feet, and preventing anyone from walking into Lahaina from the bypass, we call it. And so he decides to go in at night. And he parks on the bypass. If anyone knows of the bypass, it's up the hill a little bit, and he starts to walk in. Well, he vapes. And so he takes a puff of his vape, and as he exhales, he notices that there's a number of infrared sensors running across everywhere. He goes, they're in the water, they go straight up in the sky. And my friend is, he's probably got the most brilliant engineer mind you will ever encounter. He's just brilliant in that way. And I've come to realize that no matter how outlandish his stories are, that I ought to believe them. So I always believe his stories, regardless of how far-fetched they might seem. And he said, hey, as soon as I crossed through this little ravine of water, he goes, the military was on me right away. They knew exactly where I was, and they kicked me out. I was like, okay, that's weird. But then I talked to a friend of mine who's former CIA, who lives here. And he was allowed to go into one area of Lahaina, supervised, and at night to look for pets. There was one area you were allowed to look for pets. Well, what he did was, because he was former CIA, he still had his military night vision. And so he said, well, I'm going to look for my cat with my night vision. And he puts it on, and he notices that there are infrared sensors running everywhere in Lahaina. And he says to me, he's like, Alfy, the level of security in Lahaina does not match the disaster, does not make any sense. The level of security and what's taking place doesn't make any sense to me. And I agree. I don't understand that. I think when something doesn't make sense, it usually means, in law enforcement, the saying was, if something doesn't make sense, someone is lying. That's just how it is. Or someone's mistaken. That's just what I always found. And I always follow that rule. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, somebody's lying here. And that was always the case in my personal experience. So there you go.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's just so wonderful, tragic, but so important to be given more information out of Lahaina, where they've tried to shut everything down. So we, again, the people, on the outside that love and care so much, can be aware, be armed with information from the horse's mouth, and then do something, help, bring awareness, challenge the military if need be, in that way, to reveal to the people why they've locked you down in such a high-tech perimeter. Why that perimeter? Why are they guarding that particular perimeter? Really? It takes you back to, why is there gold under there? Because we know over the years how assassinations have taken place. Our indigenous cultures, our American Indians, our First Nation, that they should be called, they were butchered and massacred because people found gold in the gold mines. And it's, the story plays out and out, but there's something different, I know, about Lahaina, and it is a standing point for humanity. where that they've tried to crush this very, very important pivotal nucleus on the entire planet. This is what Lahaina is, as far as I'm concerned, a really important nucleus, and it's trying to be stopped and poisoned and taken. But the mufflers that, you know, run the planet, it's the end. It's the end. And we will see this. I do believe that. I know that it's happening right now. And again, people like you, Alfy, Basurto, from rebuildmaui.org, are very much a leader in that way. Alfy, I'm going to invite you to invite others to come on my channels, and, you know, keep putting information out, because us humans, because of the programming that we have, we tend to have a 2-week window. Something happens, it's terrible. Oh my God, really sad. What can I do? Oh, that's terrible, Jilly. Oh yes, Brian, it's really awful. You know, not mocking people, but this is kind of a program. And then we're on to the next. And now there's so many distractions, other wars happening, other horrors. Now there's Israel over here and Ukraine over here and Lahaina over here. However, we do have to all still stay focused. Don't forget, don't move on to the next horror. Like, stay with it so we can help support and we can protect Lahaina from the vultures and from darkness. I want to hand over to you for final words. Anything else that you need to say? Any information you need to give? Any websites? I'll put all your details underneath, but please, the floor is yours, Alfy.
You know, I just thanks for giving me some time to share what's happening here in Lahaina. I think it's important that people continue to talk about this, to get families the help they need. There's going to be a lot of families who are being underserved at the moment. So, you know, I hope that we keep this conversation about Lahaina alive, as you were saying, and that we don't forget about the families who need everything right now. I mean, they literally need everything. And, you know, help in any way that you can, whether it's through an organization that you have experience with, or through a friend, or through our site, any which way. But there's a lot of families who really stand in a lot of need. So even talking about this, you know, raising awareness is, I think, the first step. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Of course. I always say, there are people out there with much, like 4 or 5 times the size of my channel, that I invite. Get Alfy on your channel, get people from Lahaina on your channel. Keep this in front, on the table. Don't take it off the table. So again, Alfy, thank you so much, sir. It's an honor and a joy to meet you. I'm so happy that your beautiful wife and all 5 of your children are safe. And you are doing what you're doing, and it's rebuildmaui.org, that anyone can go to. And guys, I trust this man. He also comes from Leah, another trusted source. You sent your money directly to Leah. Leah gave it to families. You witnessed that, and now we have Alfy for you. And Alfy has a bona fide plan, putting homeless people into domes. Oh my God, giving them rent free. I still cannot speak enough to that. The kindness, the love in you, the passion, because you can bet your bloody bottom dollar that a governmental whatever, not only forcing people to still pay mortgages, but they'd be charging people, knowing and not caring that they're trying to put their lives together mentally, emotionally. They're still grieving, they're still traumatized. So it's just admirable what you're doing. So Alfy, anytime you want to come back on my channel, share any updates, anytime you want to bring somebody with you, please do. And guys out there, I know you're going to be so pleased, and it's upsetting, I know, but it's all right. You know, we can do something. We can help. So you want to get boots on the ground, get in touch with this great man. He'll tell you what you can do. Thank you for listening, everyone out there. Thank you for caring. I know you feel the same way about Lahaina as I do. And together we stand strong and we support our human family. My name is Dani Henderson. I send you my love, and I will see you soon.
Thank you.